Nearly 600 years ago, the sword Immortal left behind an ancient sword secret manual, the Divine Sword Secret Manual. The young man in black bowed, seemingly a spy from some organization here with a mysterious purpose. Now it seems the goal is almost complete. He suddenly pulled out a small bamboo tube capped at one end from his robe, thinking, I honestly want this, but it's meaningless to own it with a body whose dantian has been damaged like this. If other martial arts sects discover them, they will surely pay attention and plot to steal it. I must hide it before anyone comes here with that. The young man rolled the paper into a scroll and put it into the small bamboo tube. His next action was to swallow the rough bamboo tube. For what purpose was clear to everyone, but it seemed this thing was too hard to swallow. Unfortunately, he couldn't maintain his coolness for long. The young man couldn't help but complain, "Ugh, I should have brought water." Suddenly a voice spoke from behind him. "You're here." It was the Yellow Dragon Hall master of the Martial Arts Alliance, Mo Yong-soo. He looked very young, dressed in blue. He looked at the young man in black and said, "Hey, blood cult, spy, have you found the Divine Sword Secret Manual?" The young man, without any guard against him, honestly replied, "You've arrived, Mo Jong-soo. I've found it, and I've safely put it away. If you keep your promise, I'll hand it over to you." At this moment, a bald old man behind Mo Jong-soo, also belonging to the Martial Arts Alliance's fourth elder Baek Wee Hyang, suddenly spoke a promise. I had one when I came here. You want me to remove the blood clot from your chest, right?" Mo Jong-soo didn't deny it, replying, "I did promise that." But his hand slowly drew the sword from its sheath. He didn't add the next part, "But why should I keep my word?" He revealed a deceptive face and said, "Anyway, you have nowhere to go after leaving the blood cult, do you?" He finally called out the young man's identity, Yiyang family, Woonhui. "You were expelled from the sect because your dantian was destroyed, and 10 years ago you were kidnapped by the blood cult, and had blood clot implanted in your chest from then on to the blood cult. You were just a puppet. So even now, even if you want to reclaim your freedom, where will you go? Am I wrong, Woonhui?" Mo Jong-soo rattled on about Woonhui's entire tragic life without missing a single detail. This showed how cunning that man was. Woonhui knew this well, but still couldn't believe it subconsciously. Thinking he knows everything about me, then he blurted out, "What do you gain by telling me this?" Mo Jong-soo pointed the sword at him succinctly. Getting to the point quickly, "Hand over the Divine Sword Secret Manual. If you obediently hand it over, I will consider removing the blood clot for you." Woonhui lowered his eyes to his reflection on the sword blade, gloomily replying, "Divine Sword Secret Manual. I have kept it in a place only I know. You also know my situation." "Right. I'm not asking for any special privileges from your sect," he expressed with sincere eyes. "I simply want to leave the blood cult and live a peaceful life like a normal person. So first, please remove the blood clot for me. Once that's done, I will voluntarily hand over the secret manual to you." Baek Wee Hyang, standing to one side, suddenly burst out laughing, lol. On his face pretending to be a living Buddha, he gave a sinister smile and said, "You're truly stubborn." As soon as he finished speaking, Mo Jong-soo acted unexpectedly, and without a word, he plunged a sword into Woonhui's heart. He narrowed his eyes, predicting, "I knew it. This is where a third-rate spy like you hides things. I bet you hid it inside your body." Woonhui's innocent actions indeed made him easily fall into a great enemy's trap. The sword strike hit a vital spot, immediately causing him to spit blood. The young man painfully cursed inwardly. "Those bastards, they intended to kill me from the start." Mo Jong-soo had no intention of letting him live longer. He brutally pulled out the sword, causing Woonhui to stagger backward. Blood trailed from the blade, forming a beautiful arc in the air. Mo Jong-soo, in the cold darkness, pressed close to the young man in front of him, tauntingly laughing, "Don't hate us, Woonhui. The moment you became a spy here, your fate was sealed. It will end like this." Woonhui's flesh and blood gushed in agonizing pain, but his face was emotionless, as if he had completely numbed. The poor young man in that brief moment couldn't help but blame himself. Damn it. Why did my miserable life end like this? With that, he bent down and clutched his chest, while Mo Jong-soo fiercely swung his sword, once more aiming at him. This second strike was the fatal blow. Woonhui was slashed in the abdomen. His eyes rolled back and he fell backward. Unexpectedly, Mo Jong-su's fatal blow miraculously struck the exact location of the bamboo tube Woonhui had swallowed earlier. The sharp sword showed no mercy, cutting the rolled-up secret manual in half. Mo Jong-su, quick as lightning, saw the object destroyed and instinctively blurted out, "Damn it!" The secret manual was inside him. But immediately after, before he could even react, a flash of green light shone directly into his eyes. Mo Jong-su unexpectedly shouted, "What the hell is that?" A bizarre scene appeared for some unknown reason. Woonhui's body suddenly erupted in a hellish green flame, burning ceaselessly. Mo Jong-su was angry and confused. What is this? Why is his body burning with green flames? Woonhui himself didn't understand what was happening, only feeling something was wrong, thinking it's not hot at all. Is this not real fire? A faint smile seemed to appear on his lips. Lol, but what good is that? Now unless I have something called an afterlife, I hope it will not be as miserable as this one. Then the entire scene before his eyes plunged into endless darkness, condensing for a moment like exploding glass shattering into pieces. At this moment, suddenly, a splash of cold water came from nowhere, hitting Woonhui's face, who had just been stabbed to death. Woonhui immediately jolted awake, his soul barely coalescing, and screamed cold, so cold the people surrounding him laughed loudly. Lol, look at you. Woonhui was in extreme confusion. He remembered the memory from just now and instinctively touched his stomach only to find it intact. He thought in panic, my body has no cuts, no signs of burns. A familiar voice teased, "Hey, you look pathetic, Woonhui," before Woonhui could even look. He was startled and blurted out, "This voice must be." The owners of those voices were Songjua Baek and Song Woo-jun, both calling themselves the Hunan Twin Blades. Songjua Baek said blankly, "Are you out of your mind? This drinking bet." We, the Hunan Twin Blades, won again. Song Woo-jun immediately chimed in. Hunan Twin Blades, Woonhui's thoughts echoed, are Songjua Baek and Song Woo-jun, the infamous black and white twins of the blood cult. Why do they look so young? I remember I used to be close to them. Besides, why am I still alive and well, even though I was just burned alive by that green flame? After a long moment of wondering, Woonhui noticed the mirror next to him, reflecting his face, and he picked it up in shock. Huh? A loud sound the people around him asked in confusion. What is it? What are you so shocked about? Woonhui observed for a moment before confirming, This is me when I was young. Songjua Baek saw the person in front of him acting like he was possessed. He couldn't help but kick him affectionately. This crazy guy is still drunk, huh? Woonhui fell backward to the ground. The twin brothers bent down and looked at him, reminding him, "Sober up and pay us the bet, idiot." Waking up to violence. Woonhui clutched his head and groaned. Damn it. It hurt so much he suddenly realized something strange, huh? If it hurts so much, how can it be a dream? Immediately he jumped up the young man like a madman, grabbed the person next to him by the collar, and shouted, "What day is it today?" Songjua Baek was startled and cursed. "What are you talking about?" Woonhui. Woonhui spoke even louder. "What day is it today?" "Is it that hard to ask?" Songjua Baek firmly held his arm and growled, "Let go of my hand first." Only Song Woo-jun, leisurely beside them, spoke up to answer the year of Jiashu, the month of Jiyu, the 9th day. Woonhui turned his head in surprise. The year of Jiashu. He began to deduce if today is the 9th day of the month of Jiyu. In the year of Jiashu, then this is exactly the day 10 years before I died. Song Woo-jun twirled his index finger at his temple, implying he was foolish. Saying otherwise, "What year do you think it is? Did you drink too much and become stupid?" Suddenly the person burst out laughing. Lol Woonhui was overjoyed and hugged the person who had just kicked him, shouting happily, "Jua Baek, I'm so glad to see you." Songjua Baek, on the other hand, felt disgusted and cursed. "Hey, you're so cold, let go of me." Woonhui doubted. Again, wait a minute. Is this really 10 years ago? If it really is 10 years ago, then... Old memories gradually flooded Woonhui's mind. It was a clear, star-filled night. The moon high above shone brightly, At this moment, all vegetation and living things were silent and humanity was deep in slumber. In the courtyard, a man was on guard duty. It seemed the young man was on a late shift. He probably hadn't been guarding for long before he opened his mouth and snored. Suddenly, several mysterious black shadows appeared from nowhere without a sound, as if ghosts. The young man woke up with a start. He opened his eyes groggily and vaguely saw human figures in front of him. Sleepily, he mumbled, "It's late. Guests have arrived." I fell asleep. "Someone go greet the guests." Unfortunately, as soon as he finished speaking, the assassin guest standing in front of him had already slashed his neck with a sword. The unfortunate young man's cut was so clean that it sliced through skin, flesh, and bone like cutting tofu. It's unclear why a group of assassins came to this house. The guard before his head was severed naively called for lower-ranking people to greet the guests. Soon, a few minutes later indeed, the creak of a door opening was heard. A young boy, yawning widely, stepped out yawn until he woke up and looked at the scene in front of him. He was shocked. The senior who was speaking fluently just now had turned into a bloody corpse, with his head rolling on the ground. The young boy was completely terrified. His throat immediately let out a chilling scream. Woonwi remembered that night and felt it was enough returning to reality. The young man clumsily stood up, constantly rummaging through his belongings and putting them into a cloth bag, mumbling to himself, "Damn it, where is it I should have packed earlier?" Songjwa-baek didn't understand what happened to the hateful brat in front of him. After he woke up, instead, he felt that he seemed to be planning to escape debt. "Hey, you're not going to say you don't have money, are you?" Woonwi didn't bother to say much to those innocent sheep. He shouted, "If you don't want to die, pack your bags and get out of here quickly." Songjwa-baek had a fiery temper. He simply couldn't hear the serious implication in the warning. He angrily cracked his knuckles gloomily, threatening, "This is really too much. Do you need me to teach you a lesson?" Woonwi had no energy to listen any further. A moment later, he quickly found what he was looking for. A smile appearing on his lips found it. It was an old sword on the table. The sheath was even wrapped with several torn white bandages. It was the only precious relic his mother left him, the Zhaodan sword. Woonwi held the hilt of the sword, thinking, "I deeply regret losing this in my previous life. No matter how urgently I need to escape, I must take this with me." The moment the heavy sword was lifted suddenly from nowhere, a piercing scream pierced the young man's delicate eardrums. Woonwi, unprepared, immediately felt pain in his head from the sound and covered his ears. He struggled to open his eyes, sweat beading, confused. "What's happening? I thought I went deaf." From outside the courtyard, someone cried for help. "Help." Songjwa-baek frowned. He turned to ask his brother, "Did you hear that?" Song Woo-jun nodded. "Yeah, it seems to be coming from outside." Woonwi, sitting to one side, felt strange if it's from outside. This sound is too loud. But he quickly returned to the most urgent matter. Now is not the time to argue that scream means it has begun. It turned out that every passing moment now was the next development of that bloody night in Woonwi's memory. Songjwa-baek and Song Woo-jun heard the cry for help and looked out the window. Indeed, they quickly saw black-clad assassins surrounding the outside. Songjwa-baek was confused. Who are they? Song Woo. Jun was no different, asking, "What should we do?" Woonwi suddenly weaved between the two, pushing them aside and shouting, "Get out of the way! Let me see!" Through the small crack in the door, the young man tried to peer outside. The wailing of the person from earlier pitifully called out, "It seems they quickly ascended to heaven." Woonwi, filled with hatred, grimaced and cursed those bastards of the blood cult. The 9th day of the month of Gu in the year of Jiashu. That was the day the blood cult kidnapped me. Songjwa-baek looked down, worriedly asking, "Is it bandits?" Woonwi immediately replied, "No, they are the blood cult." He turned and walked away, advising the two, "There's not much time left. They'll be here soon if you want to live. Run away quickly." Songjwa-baek couldn't believe it and asked again, "Are they really the blood cult?" I thought the blood cult was annihilated after being defeated by the martial arts alliance. Woon Hui was now so urgent he wanted to grow wings and fly. The more he listened, the more annoyed he became, cursing, "Why don't you go directly in front of them and ask, are you the blood cult in his heart?" He couldn't help but say, "I have to run, you do whatever you want." Song Jua-bek turned to ask Song Woo-jun's opinion. "Should we run away now?" Song Woo-jun slowly hummed in response. Woon Hui had already opened the door and stepped into the hallway. He looked left and right, starting to calculate, now is not the time to worry about them. Didn't they all become martial arts masters after being kidnapped? All right. As long as I survive and escape this inn, that's all that matters. Suddenly an unrelated image flashed across the scene. There weren't just 3 people, Woon Hui and the 2 Song family members. There was also one more person. Woon Hui suddenly remembered letting out a soft, "Huh." The other person in his memory was a small man with a bandaged forehead who called him young Master Woon Hui. Immediately blurted out, "Now that I think about it, I just remembered. There was one more person going back. 10 years, many things have long been covered in a thick layer of dust." Fortunately, Woon Hui's memory isn't bad. He finally recognized the identity of the young boy, a song. He couldn't help but scold himself. "Woon Hui, you idiot, you came here with a song. He's the only one who always stood by me in Yi Yang Zhao's family. I can't abandon someone I consider a brother." Woon Hui darted like a bullet in a flash. He slammed open a song's door and shouted loudly, "A song, wake up." A song was suddenly woken up and immediately jumped up. I was sleeping." The boy clutched his chest and sighed. "Phew, young master, you startled me." Woon Hui grabbed a song's hand and said, "Wake up quickly. We must escape from here immediately." A song was like someone fallen from the sky, not understanding what the hell was going on. He panicked and asked, "What's happening?" Young Master Woon Hui hastily said, "I'll tell you after we escape from here. We are being attacked by the blood cult. They will soon enter the inn." A song repeated exactly like Song Jua Bayek, the blood cult. But the blood cult was defeated by the martial arts alliance. Woon Hui shouted, "Shut up, just know what I tell you." Both of them rushed through the chaotic crowd. A song noticed they seemed to be going in the wrong direction and said, "I understand, but isn't the exit that way?" Woon Hui had already calculated that way is impossible. "The entire town has been surrounded. If we go out, we will definitely be caught," a song said in fright. "Really then, why don't we go back to the room and hide in the closet?" Woon Hui was exasperated, this kid. He irritably replied, "That's a hiding place anyone can find. They didn't come here to steal property. They came to kidnap people like us. They will search every place people might hide. For example, a closet is a place anyone can hide. Or in large wine jars, they can find them immediately." A song felt that running away like this was no different from hiding, so he wondered, "So we'll all be caught and killed anyway." Woon Hui was furious and cursed. "Don't talk nonsense. We have to hide in a place. No one would think of hiding a place where even if they thought of it, no one would actually hide there." The sound of the gate slamming open echoed in the silent night. They finally reached their destination. A song's voice was a little hesitant here. "Is this the place young master mentioned?" Woon Hui calmly replied, "Yes, it's here. A place no one would ever expect someone to hide." A song stared silently at the small dark pit in front of him, suddenly feeling speechless. After a few seconds of stunned silence, the boy burst out, "Who would hide in an outdoor latrine? I can't do that." Woon Hui, abandoning all dignity, retorted, "Is this the time to question that? I'm letting you hide by yourself in a whole latrine. You can thank me later. I'll hide somewhere else with that." He quickly pushed a song inside. A song felt sick to his stomach. He refused. "If you think this is a good place, then you go in." "Wait, don't push me. One matter was done." Woon Hui closed the door from the outside. He continued to calculate, even if it's the blood cult, they definitely won't search this place. I originally intended to hide here, but now there's no other way. I have to find another hiding place before the blood cult members come here. With that, the young man's eyes were immediately drawn to a horse stable behind him. He then mockingly uttered, "Oh ho ho, so it seems I'm not going to die so soon." After an unknown number of minutes, a horse suddenly ran out of the gate on the road outside. It was the same horse from earlier. Next to the stable, there was a large wooden barrel full of straw. Woonwee, it turned out, was hiding under the pile of straw. He lay on his back, one eye slightly open, thinking, hiding here isn't bad if they lose a horse. They'll surely look for the horse, not its grass, right? But if they're first-rate spies, they'll definitely sniff it out immediately to prevent that from happening. I must hold my weapon firmly. Finding himself in an urgent situation where he needed to hide, suddenly, a noisy voice exclaimed from the straw, "Ah, so dirty, so dirty." The sword in Woonwee's hand trembled continuously. "This damn kid don't hold me with those wet hands." Woonwee was startled and looked down, asking in panic, What was that sound? The treacherous sword immediately cursed. "What do you think that sound was? I told you to wipe your hands, you damn brat. Do you not listen to me because I'm a short sword?" Woonwee was terrified by this scene. What is this? Is the sword also possessed?" The sword quickly cursed back, What damn ghost possessed me? You mean my voice is due to demonic possession? I am the sword of dissipation, your mother's relic that you kept in your satchel." Having said that, it suddenly paused for a moment, then realizing something was amiss, it asked in surprise, "Really, you just replied to me, a human and a sword." With that, a ghostly white figure emerged from the miraculous short sword. It was a small woman with long, flowing platinum hair. Her attire was somewhat strange compared to people from the Central Plains with bizarre patterns. Could it be the soul of the Sodom sword? Woonwee was shocked and gaped. The female floated gracefully in mid-air. She said, "If you can hear the sound from the sword, can you also see its incarnation?" Woonwee's eyes widened. He even thought there was something wrong with his mind. What is this? Am I hallucinating? Is this a ghost? I don't hear, I don't see. But he didn't expect this female to seemingly hear what he was thinking. Her face showed annoyance and discomfort. "Hey, kid, I know you can see and hear me. We swords can read your thoughts when we come into contact with you," she said, raising her claws. Woonwee recoiled in shock. "Ah, I really can hear and see her." Suddenly, footsteps sounded from afar. Both simultaneously looked in that direction. Woonwee spoke up to remind, Wait, be quiet." Sodom wondered what is it? Is it because of that man over there? It's okay anyway. You're the only one who can hear what I say. This is the first time someone has talked to me. Woonwee was annoyed by this overly noisy mosquito, he cursed. "I know, please be quiet for a bit. Okay, I can't think straight." The spy was a bald man. He wandered around inside with the purpose of finding people to kidnap. Suddenly his gaze was drawn by something. He crouched down. On the ground were footprints of someone running. The shoe sole was clearly imprinted, revealing the person's size. This man quickly deduced the most suspicious spot. He looked up, his gaze sweeping towards the nearby horse stable. Footsteps sounded again. Woonwee tightened his grip on the short sword in his hand. The spy walked closer and closer until his shadow was cast by the moonlight onto the messy straw in front of him. Sodom, seeing that this had nothing to do with her, asked, "I ask you one question. If you're discovered, will you stab him? I mean, your strength compared to his is quite different. Do you have the guts to stab him when you're caught?" Sodom's innocent question inadvertently brought back memories of his previous life. Woonwee seemed to hear the voice of the evil man, Mo Jong-soo. "Listen to your heart beating so loudly. Are you scared?" The spy had now reached out his hand towards him. Woonwee clenched his teeth. The image of Mo Jong-soo killing him was still vivid in his mind. At this moment, the spy's hand was extremely close. Woonwee finally broke free from that haunting image, opening his eyes wide. A second later, the young man, like a wolf, sprang up, a fatal blow gripping the short sword. He stabbed the spy in the neck, acting flawlessly from beginning to end. The unlucky spy didn't have time to react immediately, receiving a pain that pierced to the top of his head. His eyes rolled back, and he couldn't even groan. Woonwee's killing intent flared. The young man, filled with courage, rose and answered the previous question. "Scared? No, I'm very excited. Watch me, I will survive this life at any cost." Sodom didn't expect the young man in front of her to also be a hidden master. However, that was enough to surprise her a little. She crossed her arms and vaguely praised him. "You're quite good, aren't you? I thought you were just an idiot who only knew how to compare drinks with the Song Brothers all year round. It seems I need to reevaluate you. Oh, where did you learn this? Woonhui was busy hiding the enemy's body in the straw, and her constant nagging in his ear annoyed him greatly. He used his thoughts to scold her. You're making my head explode. Please be quiet for a bit. Sodom felt that she hadn't bothered him at all. She sighed. I only said a little bit. Woonhui also let out a heavy sigh, then ignoring whether she heard him or not, he thought for now. I'll just ignore her. Sodom next to him immediately muttered, Kid, I hear what you're saying. The situation is getting much worse, Woonhui pondered based on his previous life's experience. According to the blood cult's military strategy, when on a mission, warriors would divide into groups of 3 and go together. The comrades of the bastard I just killed will come here sooner or later. I've hidden his body here. But it's only a matter of time before they discover it. If I get caught in this situation, I will definitely be killed on the spot, without any questions asked. The young man thought of the danger. Then I must finish everything before escaping from here. Suddenly, Sodom next to him turned her head. Her senses were better than Woonhui's, so something must have arrived. Sodom's expression remained unchanged. She looked and immediately told him, Hey, Woonhui. Woonhui, who had been concentrating on his calculations, was constantly disturbed by this woman. He complained irritably, Ugh, what now? Can you please let me think in peace for a moment? Sodom glanced behind him and replied, No, actually, I really want to, but there's a blood cult warrior behind you, so I thought I should let you know. Such urgent news, yet she spoke so casually. Woonhui turned around in astonishment. What? A low voice echoed. Did I disturb your peace? It's okay. Just continue. Don't mind me. Woonhui and Sodom simultaneously looked behind them. The scene that met their eyes was a spy standing indifferently with his arms crossed at the gate. It was unclear if he had mastered the art of coming and going without a trace. In short, it was unclear when he had arrived. He then said, I was admiring your work. Why are you stopping? Woonhui's relaxed nerves immediately tightened like a string again. He vigilantly looked at the man and thought, when did he get there? And more than that belt. The dark brown belt. He's a mid-level warrior. A stronger master has entered the field. Woonhui stood in a defensive stance and cursed. Damn it. I should have reacted faster. If he's a mid-level warrior, I have no chance of winning right now. Sodom was very excited. She clung to Woonhui's shoulder and said, Oh, going to fight him, should I help you? Let him see the power of a short sword. Woonhui told her to shut up. I've been telling you for a while, can't you just not bother me? The spy finally strode towards Woonhui. He said disdainfully, Look, you don't know your place, do you? You don't seem skilled in martial arts, even though it was a sneak attack. It's quite commendable that you could take down a low-level warrior. So you're probably mid-level then. I'll grant you a favor. If you surrender now, I'll give you a chance to live. Woonhui calmed himself, trying to find a demand to distract the man. He thought, all right, now I'll provoke him. He thought it and did it. He immediately opened his mouth and confronted the man. If you're going to kill me, why do you need to talk about trivial things like mid-level and all that? You want to capture me, but you're afraid you'll die miserably like that guy, right? The man raised one eyebrow. He asked again, What did you say? Sodom couldn't understand what this kid Woonhui was playing at. She shouted, Are you crazy? What do you gain by provoking him? Woonhui ignored her. He only looked at his opponent and thought, just as I expected, acting arrogant and only provoking will make him drop his guard. The spy thought he would immediately burst into a rage, but unexpectedly he was silent for a moment, then burst out laughing. Lol, kid, did you eat a leopard's guts? Your mind is quite clever. It would be a waste to kill you. It seems he saw through his shallow scheme. Woonhui, seeing that his initial plan was useless, angrily thought, Damn it, he's more cautious than I thought. The spy drew his sword from its sheath. The sharp long sword under the moonlight emitted a faint, cold blue light. He said, It seems you're trying every way to avoid fighting. Then let me see, he said. Rushing towards him, the heavy sword swung in a perfect arc. Are your skills as good as your mind and your mouth? He then quickly and sharply swung the sword horizontally. The sword's aura was overwhelming if Woonhui didn't dodge in time. His head and neck would definitely be split into two. A male protagonist wouldn't be useless like that reborn, and alive, he absolutely couldn't die. So early in a flash, he quickly ducked down, miraculously dodging the dangerous sword strike. His will shone in his eyes layer by layer, even if I'm a third-rate spy and my Dantian is destroyed. But it's enough for me to see through you. With that, he skillfully transitioned his defense into an offense, swinging a straight, decisive cut towards the enemy. It was a pity that before the sword tip could even touch the opponent's clothes, his movement was precisely caught by the spy's hand, easily blocking the attack. He uttered too slow. Wunhui frowned in surprise, the spy his opponent, at least nearly 2 meters tall compared to Wunhui's currently small body. Indeed, it was no different from a praying mantis trying to stop a chariot. He casually lifted him up and evaluated. Your observation is pretty good, but your movements are too slow. Wunhui suddenly relaxed his hand, holding the sword, causing the weapon to slowly slip. The spy continued to speak, but that last strike was quite good. I'll pretend I didn't see you kill that low-level warrior, so just quietly follow me in those few brief moments of discussion and persuasion. Unexpectedly, the short sword didn't fall to the ground, but was accurately caught by Wunhui's other hand. As soon as he caught it without waiting for the opportune moment to pass, Wunhui immediately powerfully cut through the air, aiming a straight slash at the opponent's neck. His movement was so fast it was invisible, becoming a dazzling streak of light, carrying killing intent. He shouted in reply, "No way!" But thinking he had severed the man's artery, Wunhui secretly rejoiced. All right, I have. It turned out that because the opponent's movements were incredibly swift and formidable in a moment of carelessness, he still managed to dodge Wunhui's fatal blow. However, surviving didn't mean he was unharmed. The man was now utterly enraged and muttered, This brat!" Wunhui exclaimed, "No way." I unleashed a fatal blow, and he still dodged it. The previous sword swing unfortunately didn't kill him, but instead inadvertently injured his left eye on his face. Now was a hideous red wound. Even his mask was ripped open. He roared, "You son of a BT-chi." With that, he unleashed a direct kick to Wunhui's abdomen. That kick was so powerful that even a stone would crack upon impact, let alone a young boy like Wunhui, whose martial arts were unrefined and literary skills undeveloped. How could he withstand it? Wunhui groaned, his entire body flying back no different from an abused puppy. Wunhui flew a long distance due to inertia, then slid a long way on the ground. The rustling dust split in two and flew into the air. He was thrown a considerable distance, even bouncing and rolling like a ball. The kick knocked the young man's soul out of him. However, he wouldn't allow himself to fall easily. Wunhui struggled to support himself and sat up thinking, I didn't expect him to be able to dodge my strike from that distance. Wunhui wiped the corner of his mouth and looked up. He once again gripped the short sword. Now I have no other choice but to stand up and fight him. Sodom flew a circle around his head, suggesting, Wunhui, let me help you. I'm telling you, without me, there's no way you can defeat him. Wunhui didn't believe her at this point. What else can you do? Sodom helplessly sighed. Oh my God, so you're going to be stubborn to the end. So what are you going to do now? Wunhui replied, I couldn't cut deep, but at least I made it difficult for his left eye to observe, so I'll aim for it. The spy's left eye was so severely injured that fresh blood flowed from the corner of his eye. He clutched his eye and cursed bitterly. Damn it, I tried to be gentle with you. But you're completely ungrateful. Are you so tired of living? I had intended to just warn you a little, and then take you to the blood cult. But I've changed my mind. I'll end you right here, right now. He roared, I'll cut you into 100 pieces. Then he concentrated his strength into his feet and launched a terrifying leap. His movements became like an arrow leaving a crossbow, rushing straight towards the small young man in the distance. Wunhui opened his eyes wide, watching the attacks created by his techniques, reflected in his pupils. He uttered this. The spy had now completely transformed into a sword demon. Every slash he swung glowed with a faint, mystical red light. The sword strokes were sharp, agile, treacherous, and decisive, striking out dozens of times. The scene was exactly like the thunder god unleashing lightning, as if he was willing to dance in the raging storm. Wunhui stood before the tempest, the overwhelming and unparalleled sword aura crashing down upon him. He could only use all his life force to defend against the deadly slashes that seemed to want to cut into him. His clothes ripped in several places because of them. This is the blood sword, the basic sword art of the blood cult. He said he's too fast, I can't read his moves. Moreover, this bastard he's trying to attack me with fatal blows. The spy continuously slashed forward without stopping. He wanted to create a rain of attacks as he slashed. He roared, "Do you know what you've done now?" Woonhui, now he's nothing more than a passive punching bag. This punching bag standing before such a deadly sword is likely to be torn apart. Sooner or later, he struggled to resist thinking, is he really striking until I die? The spy's eyes turned white with rage. He said it's too late to repent. Then his legs spread wide. The heavy sword in his hand retracted to gain momentum for a finishing strike. He roared, "Your life ends here, kid." The internal force emanating from that technique was shockingly powerful. If Woonhui took this final blow, he would likely be flying to heaven in an instant. The moment of life and death was approaching. Woonhui didn't know how to cope. He gritted his teeth and thought he's using every trick to finish me off. What should I do? Should I just close my eyes and charge at him? In this urgent situation, suddenly Tiny Sodom unexpectedly whispered in his ear, "It's a frontal attack." As soon as she finished speaking indeed, a frontal attack was launched. Woonhui warned quickly used his sword to block it successfully, defending against that fierce attack. The spy hadn't anticipated the carp suddenly turning into a dragon. He gasped in fright. He lost his soul. Although Woonhui managed to block the fatal blow, the power of that attack was truly immense and formidable. Thus Woonhui was also sent flying backward. The young man somersaulted a few times and then landed perfectly. Woonhui couldn't believe his luck. His expression was astonished, neither joy nor sorrow when I blocked his attack. Sodom was surprised that he could do it, just by her speaking. She crossed her arms and praised him. "Very good. You really blocked it. If I hadn't helped you, you would be dead." Woonhui suddenly asked, "So that was your voice earlier, so you can see his attacks?" Sodom retorted irritably, "I told you I could see it. The swings of a third-rate swordsman like him are too easy to read." Then she felt her position was finally somewhat solidified. She patted his head. "So what do you want now? Should I continue to be silent?" Woonhui suppressed his pride and replied for his meager life, "Sorry for ignoring you twice. Can you help me?" Sodom heard that and stretched with great satisfaction. "Of course, I've patiently waited so long I couldn't possibly turn a blind eye to a rare and hard-to-find creature that can talk to me after 47 years of searching. Damn it." Woonhui heard something strange. A rare and hard-to-find creature. With that, Sodom landed on Woonhui's shoulder. She sharply looked at the opponent and said, "All right, if I read him for you, how will you deal with him?" Woonhui replied, "I'm thinking about it too, but with my current condition, it's hard to deal with him. He has seen me counterattack once, so he definitely won't attack me in close combat anymore. He will definitely try to maintain distance." Sodom seemed to understand her ally's plan, flowing smoothly. She continued anyway, "As long as we make him lose patience eventually." Both spoke in unison. "We'll have a chance." The spy was silent for a few seconds, looking at the unusual young man in front of him. He thought, can he block my final blow? How is that possible? Did he figure out my sword art? No, it must be pure luck. There's no way a third-rate like him could do that. With that, he once again charged forward, roaring this time, "I will definitely kill you." Sodom was full of fighting spirit. She cracked her knuckles and smiled. "All right, let's begin. First block his attack and prolong the time." Woonhui immediately nodded. "I understand, I'm ready. You just need to tell me his sword moves." For the second time, the spy continued to unleash his old techniques. His sharp sword strokes unwavering, only growing stronger. But now, Woonhui, with the help of the Sodom sword, was no longer the same as yesterday. Just as the long sword was about to strike his left shoulder, she shouted, "Left shoulder." This time it's a feint. Woonhui tried to coordinate perfectly when the second sword stroke came. Sodom said, "Right wing." The spy's expression changed unpredictably as he fought. He couldn't believe that after only one attempt, this kid could respond and counter him so smoothly he couldn't help but exclaim, "Impossible, how can he block everything?" With that, his left eye vision suddenly became problematic. He helplessly cursed, "Damn it, blood." At that moment, Woonhui also seized the initiative and dodged past the spy. Sodom wisely advised if you hit his blind spot, he will lose patience. His counterattacks and blind spots will have low accuracy, but his counterattack speed will be very fast. He will definitely swing horizontally delayed by 1 beat indeed. As soon as the spy finished speaking, he turned his head and looked at Woonhui, grumbling, "This sneaky blind man." Woonhui approached him. He crouched very low close to the ground, trying to avoid his left side's vision. At this moment, Sodom shouted. Woonhui immediately charged forward. He gritted his teeth, his eyes filled with determination to win. When the spy regained his focus, he saw Woonhui right beside him. He said in surprise, How can he?" Then he ominously added in a mocking tone, "Is that what you wanted when I was startled, right?" It turned out he was only feigning to mock Woonhui the spy, then unexpectedly kicked. Woonhui's right arm, the force was so strong that one could almost hear the bones cracking. Woonhui failed in close combat. Instead, he was kicked back, making him groan in a flash. The situation was balanced again. The enemy, having eliminated the danger once again, maintained a safe distance, while Woonhui struggled to maintain his balance on the ground. He bowed his head, clutching his injured arm. His opponent saw this and was very pleased. He laughed and said, "Is your arm broken, you idiotic bastard? It's commendable that you know how to aim for my blind spot, but a third rate is still a third rate." With that, he leapt into the air full of killing intent, aiming at Woonhui, who was lying on the ground. "Die, you son of a beck." At that moment, suddenly the young man's injured hand clenched into a fist. Woonhui looked up now as the moment. The heavy sword quickly descended with majesty, the cold night wind accompanying the terrifying slash truly chilling to the bone. However, at the crucial moment, Woonhui utilized both his spiritual and physical energy, his limbs flexible, turning his body like a whirlwind to dodge the young man's robe, fluttering. Woonhui miraculously and skillfully escaped death. From one surprise to another, the spy, caught off guard, exclaimed, "What? Impossible with that." Woonhui turned the tables as planned, utilizing his spinning motion to create a beautiful, precise crescent sword strike that cut the enemy's throat at close range. A second later, a gush of fresh blood erupted like a ferocious volcano. Woonhui simultaneously fell in a shower of blood. He opened his eyes wide. "I did it, I cut him." A fierce sword fight finally came to an end. Now the spy was just a cold corpse lying sprawled on the icy ground with a pool of blood. Sodom's voice echoed, "Are you all right? Can you stand up?" Woonhui calmly replied, "Yes, I'm fine." Sodom praised him for the third time that day. "Your skills are pretty good. I thought your arm was broken earlier." Woonhui said very humbly, if he had been a little more cautious, everything would have been exposed. Sodom excitedly recounted the scene from earlier. "Your final attack was so cool, you spread your legs and spun around, then slashed his neck." Woonhui, covered in grime, wiped his chin and said, "I was able to do that thanks to your help. Thank you, short sword." Sodom suddenly became a little bashful. "Oh yes, even though I'm a short sword," Woonhui added. "Why are you suddenly sulking?" Sodom crossed her arms and replied irritably, "What are you talking about, sulking? I was just a little surprised. If you're grateful to me, then please wipe the blood off the blade." Woonhui was a bit speechless. "You're mad. You're clearly mad." Sodom put her hands on her hips and interrupted, "Don't forget to wipe the sheath too. It's your mother's keepsake. You're too careless." Suddenly, after speaking, Sodom detected danger approaching. She screamed, "Woonhui, duck down." It's a pity the warning was too late. Woonhui's senses weren't sharp. Suddenly, an immense force struck the back of his neck strong enough to make his eyes pop out. The sneak attacker raised his smoking fist into the air. Woonhui violently fell to one side, unable to stop coughing up blood. The world around him seemed to turn upside down. The next scene that appeared was a man with long, weathered hair standing there. He wore a dark blue belt and coldly looked at the young man who had fallen to the ground. He spoke in a deep voice, ridiculous. "I couldn't understand why those two hadn't returned, so I went to check, and yet you two were killed by a snot-nosed kid." Woonhui was now lying slumped on the ground, blood continuously flowing from his mouth. how unlucky he had completely passed out. Yang, Town Lo Yang, County Wunhui's, Yang, Zhao family. A voice belonging to the person holding the stone tablet read each carved word, no mistake. This was Wunhui's name and identity. The subordinate looked up and reported to the long-haired leader with a mocking tone. Wunhui, this guy is a notorious playboy in Hunan. Then they all looked at a young boy, his hair disheveled face, bruised tears, and snot streaming down his cheeks, looking utterly disheveled. Someone disdainfully spoke of his nickname, Lu Yang County's useless trash. He was regarded as discarded by his family after his dantian was destroyed. He's also the son of a prominent family. Should we capture him and train him as a spy? Someone said this to the leader, but the leader, after hearing it, pondered without replying. After a moment of silence, he then turned and said in a low voice, "No. There's no reason for us to nurture an idiot who doesn't even have a dantian." He used a judgmental and condescending gaze on Wunhui. He won't be able to endure basic training and will die sooner or later. Furthermore, look at his condition. Even though he's the son of a prestigious family, he's so scared he's soiled himself. What do you intend to use him for? Wunhui looked up, his eyes filled with tears, his pupils glazed and lifeless. He heard every word enter his ears. He's not even worthy of being called low-level. Get rid of him. As soon as Wunhui heard the words, get rid of him, he was scared, senseless. He was terrified of death, so he immediately knelt down and shouted, "Great, hero, please don't kill me. I'll become a spy or anything you want." With that, he trembled like a pitiful and disgusting puppy, even clasping his hands in supplication before those who had beaten him to this state. Please spare my life." Suddenly, a thought from reality echoed in his head. Will I cry and beg like that? It turned out to be one of the most humiliating and miserable memories of his previous life, how cowardly Wunhui was. Then, Wunhui now was not so lowly. His face always maintained a calm and restrained demeanor. It was truly worthwhile that he cultivated such ability during his decade as a spy. In his previous life, he looked at the familiar yet unfamiliar scene before him, secretly thinking, I struggled to avoid this situation. Yet it still happened. No, not entirely the same this time. Both my hands are tied. Sodom sword, how long have I been unconscious? He called out in his subconscious. But in response, there was only the whispering wind from outside. No one answered at all. Wunhui called again. Sodom sword, why don't you answer me? Realizing this action was futile, he rolled his eyes to look at his short sword in the hand of a spy and secretly realized, perhaps it's because it's not in my hand. I can only talk to the sword if I hold it in my hand. The long-haired leader remained in the same posture in the same spot facing him, but this time his words and attitude were completely different for someone with a crippled dantian. He's quite impressive. When you used this old broken dagger to kill 2 of my subordinates, it's true that even though you've lost your dantian, you're still the son of a prestigious family. Wunhui heard that and gave a cold smile. This time he valued him more than in his previous life. The blood cult had a strong pragmatic tendency, so if it continued like this, they'll take me with them, right? Calm down, Wunhui, you'll just return to the same fate as before. No, I have to think positively. I have to survive and seize the opportunity to escape from here. Waiting for the blood cult squad leader to speak again. However, the content was far different from what Wunhui had calculated. He coldly looked into his eyes and said, Then we'll take care of him right here. Wunhui was utterly stunned. Clearly, he had valued him highly just now. So why did he want to slice him like tofu? Just like in his previous life, a subordinate also felt this decision was very contradictory. So he said, Sir Leader, he does have intermediate skills if nurtured properly. Then the leader didn't let him finish and interrupted. It's true, he can become a spy. But how many people out there have good bodies and dantians worthy of being nurtured into spies? So why use this trash? Get rid of him. The subordinate, valuing obedience above all, immediately drew his sword without hesitation and uttered a respectful affirmative. Wunhui never expected this old man to be at odds with him from this life to the next, never changing. He angrily gritted his teeth, cursing in his heart. Damn it, only his assessment has changed, but the core remains the same. There's no other way. I can only pray for my life, as in my previous life with that the young man truly and shamelessly abandoned all dignity, shouting exactly like that moment in the past, "Please spare my life. Great hero, I'll do anything you want." The long-haired leader found this young boy very amusing, but weakly, so he heard him bow and beg and sneered, "Oh look, you've been staring at me with your frog eyes all this time, and now you're begging for your life. Stop your cowardly act and pay the price for killing my subordinates." That's it this time. It's even worse than a fraction of his previous life. He was even more hated by the man. Woonhui's blood rushed to his head. He was so angry he almost choked. Damn it, even more miserable than my previous life. The subordinate's blade was raised high above Woonhui's head. Woonhui's eyes darted, trying to find a glimmer of hope that could save his life. He thought nervously, is there no escape? Think Woonhui, at least by some time I can't die earlier than my previous life. After being reborn in a dire situation, suddenly a chilling laughter full of malice rang out, breaking the atmosphere. The person laughed heartily, causing Woonhui to turn back in confusion. The madman laughing hysterically. It was unclear if he had a preference for crying at comedies and laughing at tragedies. In short, after he was satisfied, he suddenly spoke loudly. "The sight of you struggling for life is truly impressive. Why don't you kneel and beg like a dog again?" It turned out his taste was so twisted, he liked to see others bow and beg for their lives, but at this moment, Woonhui had no time to judge him. What caught his eye was something else. His mind subconsciously blurted out that sword. The man continued to ramble. "I guess. That's it. I'll use you as my pet dog." Woonhui basically didn't care if he was about to become a guard dog or a meat dog. He only thought about the sword hanging at his hip and secretly said, "I think I've seen it before." The sword had a white leather accessory on its hilt. If I remember correctly, it must be that person. As soon as he confirmed it, Woonhui immediately wished he could firmly grasp the opportune moment, put it in his mouth and swallow it. He prostrated himself on the ground like a demon possessed performing a ritual. Blood demon. May you be blessed. Blood flows across the world. Concubine. Ping-an, the fourth blood star. A whole squad of a dozen people hearing such a noble name uttered from the mouth of an outer disciple immediately fell into extreme confusion. They turned to each other questioning, "Fourth blood star is the fourth blood star here." The blood cult squad leader was also confused. However, he had no intention of being led by the nose by Woonhui, so he quickly turned to his subordinates and said, "What's all this noise about? There's no way someone like the fourth blood star would be here." But as soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly felt a chill down his spine, a wave of imposing killing intent, emanating from behind his neck, forcing him to turn and look. He didn't look, but when he did, he saw his mother enraged. No, perhaps even more terrifying than his mother, the leader terrified, prostrated himself without any unnecessary movements, very reverently, his mouth shouting loudly, "Greetings, fourth blood star." Woonhui secretly cast his gaze at one of the great figures of the martial arts world and inwardly narrated the blood cult under the management of a leader includes the 4 venerables and 7 blood stars. I never saw their faces in my previous life, but I heard rumors about the blood stars, disguising themselves as low-level swordsmen and infiltrating to monitor subordinates. A young man's deep, warm voice commanded him look up. Woonhui immediately dared not disobey and lifted his head. Before him now was a man with smooth, silvery purple hair like a flowing stream. Under the moonlight, his long hair became even more ethereal. His facial features were clearly indiscernible due to the mask covering half of his face. However, through his long, elegant eyes and handsome sword-like eyebrows, one could guess he was very good-looking at this moment. The fourth blood star lowered his impenetrable gaze onto Woonhui. He spoke interesting. "No one has ever discovered my identity when I was undercover. This is Du Jong Ho, the fourth blood star of the blood cult." He asked, "How did you recognize me, even though you're not a member of the blood cult?" Woonhui frankly replied that sword Du Jang Ho repeated, puzzled the sword. Woonhui continued to explain thanks to the leather accessories around the hilt. "This lowly one knows that it was made to commemorate your beloved horse, Bai Chuang. Du Jiangho heard that and laughed mockingly. He chuckled softly. Then he even sat down facing him and began to discuss. Your eyes are quite sharp. By the way, how did someone not from the blood cult know this? Wu Hui's expression didn't change. To maintain a firm demeanor, he secretly assessed the situation. Is he suspicious? It would be strange if he weren't suspicious in this situation. But in my previous life, I was hidden in a notorious sect as a blood cult spy for 7 years. I've experienced this dozens, hundreds of times. From that, it's clear our protagonist possesses an excellent skill acquired from his previous life, that is speaking lies boldly, without blinking. The young man suddenly sat up straight, changing his demeanor 60 degrees. He used a sincere gaze and began to tell a story that seemed unbelievable, but was incredibly true. Actually, it's because this lowly one has blood cult lineage. He said this outwardly, but inwardly, he thought, I can be confident in my cunning. The leader thought he misheard. He snapped his head around and shouted what? The others also couldn't help but be full of doubt. They questioned each other. Yi Yang So family has blood cult lineage, but how? Among the countless people there only Du Jiangho remained unmoved. Instead, he just stared at the boy thoughtfully. Wu Hui seized the opportunity to strike, while the iron was hot, continuing to fabricate a story based on some illusory details combined with real information. This lowly one's maternal grandfather, he participated in battles as a low-level warrior of the Blood Wolf Grand. After being severely injured, he left the battlefield. Then he wandered seeking a home with his only bloodline, which is this lowly one's mother, and so, my maternal grandfather settled in Luoyang County. Although it was very difficult to find a place to hide from the war, his injuries became increasingly serious. To earn money for ever-increasing medical expenses, this lowly one's mother worked as a servant for the Yi Yang So family. There she met my father and developed feelings, and this lowly one was born there. Du Jiangho looked at him profoundly, hearing that he paused and said, Your maternal grandfather was once in the Blood Wolf Grand. Interesting. Continue. Wu Hui didn't expect this guy to be harder to fool than he thought, so he couldn't help but grumble. Tesk, is that not enough? But then the young man continued his smooth story as if it had been prepared long ago since childhood. This lowly one was diligently trained by his maternal grandfather. Every time this lowly one complained about the hardship of training from a young age, he would mention the Blood Wolf Lord No Joman and his son No Sung-gu. Lord No's son had completed all of the Blood Wolf's training. When he was your age, he would tell this lowly one. The subordinates heard the two most powerful names in the organization and timidly whispered, No Joman and No Sung-gu. How does he know the names of the former Blood Wolf Lord and the current Blood Wolf Lord? Wu Hui continued to focus on his part of the story every day. This lowly one's maternal grandfather would say that one day the blood cult would reclaim its bloodline even 5 years ago. When he died, he spoke of the blood cult. Du Jiangho listened very attentively from beginning to end. At this moment, he subtly hummed softly. Then he rested his chin on his hand and thought, So that's how it is. If that's the case, then it's understandable that someone with a crippled Dantian like you could kill 2 members of the blood cult. But as Du Jiangho was about to continue, suddenly, the rude leader interrupted, Lol, don't make me laugh. Then he angrily turned and pointed directly at Wu Hui, shouting, Your Excellency Bloodstar, don't listen to that brat. The subordinate doesn't know where he heard that, but the Blood Wolf Grand Sect has 5 leaders. Du Jiangho's extremely low voice, gentle but powerful, cut off the arrogant and stormy words. The leader immediately froze. Du Jiangho, without knowing when, had turned and given him a very friendly, deeply affectionate look. Specifically, if he dared to utter another word, he would immediately be sent on his way by the 4th Blood Star himself. Du Jiangho then spoke concisely, Who gave you permission to interfere in my affairs? It seems that if you're a demonic leader like you can interfere in my Blood Star affairs, right? He only said that much. The leader immediately trembled and prostrated himself earnestly, saying, Please forgive me. I beg your indulgence. Wu Hui witnessed such power. He couldn't help but marvel he makes a leader cower before his gaze and a few words. This is the authority of a blood star. After disciplining his subordinates, Do Jang-ho turned back to him. He said, "Sorry for the interruption. But there's something very strange, I think, although your legitimate self-defense caused losses to the blood cult. Why didn't you reveal your lineage to the 5 leaders, but instead begged for your life?" Woon-hui was fortunately quick-witted. He didn't waste a second, and immediately replied that this lowly one was afraid of being punished if they knew his identity and that he had killed 2 subordinates. Please forgive this lowly one. When he bowed his head in a hidden corner where no one could see, Woon-hui couldn't help but feel a little scared of the person in front of him, thinking he's so sharp. I've lied mixed with the truth, but he still wasn't swayed and even focused on the unusual point. Suddenly, Do Jang-ho slowly stood up. Then he laughed loudly again behind him. None of the subordinates dared to look up. Do Jang-ho closed his eyes, rubbing his chin, and said, "It seems I joked a bit too much, all right, let's consider it so. If your maternal grandfather was a former member of the blood cult, then you should also be considered our brother, right?" Woon-hui saw his expression and couldn't help but secretly sigh in relief. It seems this side job is still quite sharp. He thought, I'm just worried about any oversight. Do Jang-ho then said, I almost lost a valuable successor to the Orthodox faction, so I will allow you to join the blood cult, considering it as continuing your maternal grandfather's legacy. How does that sound? Woon-hui, in a moment of extreme danger, had his small life preserved at this moment. The only door of opportunity to live had opened. Why not step in? The young man quickly bowed respectfully to the 4th Blood Star's kindness, replying, "It is indeed an honor for this lowly one, 4th Blood Star. My maternal grandfather can also smile in the underworld." With that, a burden was subtly lifted. Woon-hui felt a spring breeze in his heart and let out a tired sigh. Somehow I still managed to save my life, but in the end, I still have to join the blood cult. What was this reincarnation for? The ropes binding Woon-hui's hands gradually loosened. It seemed he was finally released. As soon as he was untied, Woon-hui immediately immersed himself in the role of a loyal servant to the blood cult. The young man prostrated himself very low, expressing his gratitude and respect behind Do Jang-ho. He shouted loudly, "Blood demon reigns, cleansing the world with blood." Do Jang-ho left without looking back. His hands clasped behind his back. He walked and said, "Welcome back to our sect." Woon-hui remained in his kneeling posture. He closed his eyes bitterly. If he had known everything would turn out this way, why bother fighting and struggling? He sighed. Although I'm still alive, I'm forced to return to the blood cult. If I had known this, I would have just let myself be captured. Suddenly, Do Jang-ho stopped. He seemed to have thought of something and told Woon-hui, "Oh, all right. Finding a descendant of our sect is also fate. I will listen to your wishes." Woon-hui looked up in surprise. Although his expression remained calm and composed, his heart couldn't help but churn. What the Blood Star told me to state my wish. Perhaps he's trying to see how I'll react. Since he didn't know his intention, he probably had to make a reasonable request. So he spoke up and replied, "If so, then I want to retrieve the short sword, my mother's keepsake." Do Jang-ho said expressionlessly, "Keepsake." Then he turned and told the 5 leaders to give him that item. "Give it here." But the 5 leaders were as stubborn as leeches, because Woon-hui had killed not 1 but 2 of his subordinates. He objected to Do Jang-ho, but the 4th Blood Star he had used. Do Jang-ho basically didn't even acknowledge him. He didn't even bother to turn his head. Extending his left hand, he calmly ordered, "Don't make me say it a second time. 5 leaders, here." Do Jang-ho's words were as heavy as a mountain if the 5 leaders still didn't know their place and made him speak another word. It's likely their heads wouldn't stay on for long. The 5 leaders after that sentence dared not utter another sound. He could only bitterly offer the sword. "Yes." Do Jang-ho held the short sword in his hand and drew it from its sheath. His hand, every bone clearly defined, raised the unremarkable short sword to eye level, observing it carefully for a moment before he finally assessed, "It's indeed a bit old, but it's still a good blade." But as he spoke, his other fingers gently touched the blade. Who would have thought that in the next second, that madman would actually, with an unruffled expression and just a little force, break the sword in half? He even threw out a sentence: "You have to pay the price for spilling the blood of our sect's disciples, don't you? Next time you wield a blade, I think you should be more careful." With that, Do Jang-ho gently applied a little force to his fingertips and precisely flicked the short sword, sending it flying. In a second, it was embedded right into the ground in front of Woonhui's head. Woonhui slightly lifted his eyelids to look at him. A few drops of sweat silently trickled down, thinking he just flicked his finger, and the sword already vibrated indeed, profound internal power. Perhaps he's trying to warn me. No doubt about it, but right now I'm still alive. A few moments later, a subordinate stepped forward and ordered Woonhui stand up. "How long are you going to sit there?" Woonhui sluggishly stood up and replied, "Yes, I'll pick up the sword and leave immediately." He picked up the hilt of the sword, secretly thinking anyway, "As long as I find the Sodom sword, it'll be fine. Sodom, are you okay?" He didn't hold it, but as soon as he did, an ear-splitting, mind-numbing shriek erupted. Sodom indeed reappeared, but this time she looked a little different. Her long hair somehow looked as if someone had cut off more than half of it. She exploded in rage, shouting, "Oh my God, my hair, and you ask if I'm okay. What am I going to do about this?" Woonhui was completely startled. He tried to calm her. "Calm down, Sodam. I'll take you to the blacksmith to fix it later." Sodom truly remembered the hateful, long-haired fourth blood star. She cursed him. "If I could move on my own, I would definitely shave his head bald." Woonhui secretly applauded. "I'd love to see that too." Sodom now returned to the important matter. She clasped her hands behind her back and asked him, "What did you say, Woonhui? Are you really a blood cult member? Why didn't I know?" Woonhui looked at her and replied ambiguously, "That's not a lie, but it's not the truth either." Sodom didn't understand anything and asked again, "What nonsense are you talking about now?" Woonhui only continued, "That's how it is. But if it's you, Sodom's sword, then I wouldn't mind telling the truth." Sodom frowned, unable to comprehend this person, she uttered, and then sighed. "What's so serious?" Woonhui looked at her profoundly and said, "If I told you I came from 10 years in the future, would you believe me?" Sodom heard that, and immediately felt this young man was an escaped mental patient. She expressed deep alienation and questioned herself, "Is he crazy?" Du Yang Ho was standing not far away. In reality, he wasn't someone who was easily led on. It was just that his status made him more calm and gentle than others. He wasn't like the crude 5 leaders who showed everything on their faces. Even though he didn't believe Woonhui's story, he didn't show it at all. Now that everything was temporarily settled, he stood next to the 5 leaders and nonchalantly instructed, "Send someone to Luoyang County to investigate Woonhui's maternal family." The 5 leaders were surprised to look at him upon hearing that. Then he regained his composure and said sharply, "Do you think even the 4th blood star?" Du Jang Ho replied, "Yes, actually. Whether he's telling the truth or not, isn't that important." Du Jang Ho seemed silent from beginning to end, but in reality he was very meticulous in his observations. He said, "But he observed my every subtle action, grasping my intentions, just like a skilled spy. Regardless, he knows too much about our blood cult. We must pay attention to him." The 5 leaders immediately raised their fists and replied, "Understood." It was late night. The moon was high overhead, probably already the 3rd watch. In a flat area, there were many horse carriages parked, each carrying a large wooden box at this moment. Sodom's familiar voice rang out. "Let me summarize what I understand. You lived as an internal spy in the blood cult for 10 years after being unjustly killed. You were reborn and are here now, right? You returned 10 years before you died. Then I can talk to you, right? It turned out they were in one of the many horse-drawn carriages parked outside. These wooden crates were where dozens of kidnapped teenagers were imprisoned and brought to the blood cult to be trained as their forces." Sodom. She bent down and began to look at Woonhui with different eyes. She crossed her arms and said, "No wonder I see you're not as foolish as the Woonhui I know, but he's really a blood cult member." Woonhui heard the key points in her words and was a bit speechless. He frowned and said, "You think I'm foolish?" Sodom didn't answer, but moved on to another topic anyway. You're really unlucky. You've struggled so much, you had 10 years, but you're kidnapped by the blood cult again. If you had just abandoned a song from the beginning, wouldn't it have been over? Woonhui heard that and immediately cut her off. No way. The only person who treated him like a human was him. Moreover, in his previous life, a song sacrificed his life to protect me. That was a debt of gratitude in my heart when I was in the blood cult. Finally today I have repaid it. Everything is past. Now I should think about my next life. Sodom fell into contemplation, looking at him. After a moment she said, "You'll be tricked again, like 10 years ago." Woonhui raised an eyebrow in confusion. Tricked. Sodom called out to him, "Hey, Woonhui, information is a weapon. You hold the best weapon as an internal spy. You must know this. You already know all the unfortunate events you're going to encounter so you can avoid them, or conversely, you can turn them into good things. Isn't that right?" Woonhui listened to her rambling and suddenly felt she made sense. He looked up. That's right. Why am I always worried about finding a way to continue living when I hold information from 10 years ago? Then he suddenly spoke, "Just as you said, if I have the chance, I will definitely make good use of it." Sodom praised, "Well, you can't just live like that." However, Woonhui had accidentally blurted out something earlier, so Sodom quickly reminded him, "You should control your voice, you idiot." Woonhui was confused. "Do others still hear me when I talk to myself?" Then he explained, "That's when I got too excited. Yes, there are still many opportunities ahead, perhaps I can even learn martial arts." Sodom heard that and was surprised learning martial arts. "How can a person with a crippled dantian like you learn?" Woonhui rested his chin on his hand and replied, "No, it's not entirely accurate information. And even if it's true, it's something for later, so let's temporarily ignore it for now." Sodom glanced at him and cursed. What the hell, so boring. Then she said again, "I mean, if you can maintain your internal energy, then I'll teach you martial arts." Woonhui asked, with a touch of surprise, "You'll teach me martial arts?" Sodom nodded excitedly. I am the short sword technique that my previous master once used and no one else knows it besides me." Woonhui didn't believe this ridiculous story and waved his hand, learning martial arts from a sword. No way. Sodom felt her honor was damaged, so she irritably taught him, "Haven't you ever heard the saying, even a 3-year-old guard dog can recite poetry? I know much more than you. Listen now, I will recite the incantation for you." Woonhui saw this person was full of fervor, so he couldn't stop her and just forced a smile, agreeing, "All right." Suddenly, a strange phenomenon occurred. Woonhui felt something unusual without knowing when, until he looked down and saw his right hand burst into a strange blue flame, just like when the flame engulfed him in his previous life. Woonhui watched the blue flame endlessly swirling his heart. Churning in terror, he exclaimed, "What is this blue flame?" A second later, the young man subtly entered a strange secret realm. The secret realm looked exactly like the night sky, with countless shining stars and a magnificent galaxy stretching across his vision, and Woonhui, who had entered it, became stronger and taller just like his age in his previous life, but he wore nothing, and his long hair flowed wildly. Woonhui was terrified by this scene. He looked around in confusion and shouted loudly, "Where is this? How did it become like this?" Suddenly a voice, sometimes far, sometimes near, echoed, "In the infinite space the universe will open for whoever possesses the sword heart." Woonhui looked everywhere. This place had no sky, no ground. Besides him, he saw nothing but shining stars, so whose voice was this? However, he knew this was not Sodom Sword's voice. Then a magical scene unfolded before the young man's eyes. In the middle of the night sky, a circle slowly appeared, swirling inwards like a whirlwind. And in the center of that whirlwind, a beam of light shone down, precisely aimed at Woonhui. Woonhui understood nothing, only exclaiming, "That is." But a few moments later, the intensity of that light grew stronger and stronger, so much so that he couldn't look at it normally anymore. Woonhui had to cover his eyes with his hand, trying to observe. He couldn't help but exclaim, "What in the world is it?" Everything unfolded to that point. Then Woonhui suddenly returned to reality. He hadn't even fully recovered when he was again drawn by the persistent blue flame, clinging to his hand, refusing to dissipate. He said, "I'm back. What was that just now?" Moreover, Sodom seemed unaware of what he had just experienced. She wasn't even affected. She saw him lost in thought while she was rambling. She got angry and cursed. "Hey, Woonhui, what's wrong with your mind?" "I'm struggling to recite the incantation." Woonhui saw her and asked, "Sodom, do you see this?" Sodom looked at Woonhui's raised hand and said, "Huh, what?" Woonhui explained, "Look closely. There are 7 small dots on my hand, like the Big Dipper." Sodom apparently couldn't see it. She thought he was going crazy again. "What Big Dipper? I only see your hand. Are you satisfied with the martial arts techniques of the short sword now? All right. I don't want to talk any more before we get there. Don't look for me with that." She, filled with anger, turned into a white smoke and vanished. Woonhui didn't even care, only staring intently, thinking, only I can see it. Woonhui closed his eyes to rest for a while, then apologized to her. "I'm sorry, Sodom, but are you okay? It took half a month." Sodom was still angry. "I'm tired." Woonhui nodded. "I know, but what was that just now? It was like the flame when I returned." Woonhui lay down quietly. He looked at the hand that had just been engulfed by the blue flame. Now, for some reason, 7 small glowing dots appeared based on their arrangement. One could easily associate them with the Big Dipper constellation. And furthermore, among those 7 dots, only one at the tail was brighter than usual. Woonhui didn't fully understand, but he thought it was clearly related to the mysterious sword god technique. Several nights passed, the sun and moon changed. The sky suddenly brightened again. The horse carriage convoy seemed to have moved to another location. At this moment the guards were also more tightly arranged. Woonhui tossed and turned all night, not knowing if he slept at all. As soon as he opened his eyes, he remembered what happened the day before and raised his hand to observe. Unfortunately, the Big Dipper was no longer visible. He thought, it's not appearing anymore. What do I need to do for it to appear? Suddenly, the sensation of movement in the carriage compartment stopped abruptly, causing a small jolt. Woonhui gently closed his 5 fingers and secretly said the carriage stopped. With that, a rude opening of the door echoed sunlight from outside streamed into the dark carriage compartment. A blood cult member stood there and spoke inside in a stern tone. "Get up quickly. Are you still going to lie around there? Get out quickly, and anyone who tries anything will be killed immediately." Woonhui followed the line of people stepping out of the horse carriage as the young man poked his head out. The dazzling sun from above shone down, forcing him to raise his hand to block it. It seemed that after several days of non-stop travel, they had brought everyone to a completely isolated and distant place. Surrounded by mountains, the vast land was unavoidable. Oppressive, the urging continued to echo. "Hurry up, hurry, gather at the front." Sodom was woken up by the arrogant and noisy sounds of the blood cult members. She reappeared, yawning widely. "Too noisy." "Where is this?" Woonhui replied. "Green Blood Valley, one of the blood cult's bases, and it's also where they train kidnapped children from all over into blood cult warriors." Sodom utterly hated this inhumane organization. She cursed, "Training my ass." So they were all kidnapped. Woonhui nodded, then pointed her to a man standing in the distance and introduced. "And the one standing there is one of the trainers at Green Blood Valley, the tyrannical commander Gu Sang-wung." Suddenly someone stepped forward and called, "Woonhui, hey you donkey from Luoyang City." That person spoke impolitely. That wasn't enough. After speaking, he even nudged Woonhui's shoulder. Truly an effective provocative strategy. Woonhui, distracted, unconsciously asked who. It turned out to be the Song twins. The one who nudged his shoulder was none other than the hateful Song Jua Baek. This guy wouldn't be able to eat or sleep if he didn't mock Woonhui. He now looked at him scornfully and said, "You seem to know everything that's about to happen, but you still got caught." Woonhui looked at them in surprise and exclaimed, "Jua Baek, Wu Jun." Woonhui clutched his injured arm that Song Jua Baek had just nudged. He looked at them deeply and replied, "I didn't see you guys, so I thought you had escaped." He said this outwardly, but inwardly he couldn't help but think, "So you two will be the black and white twin demons?" Song Jua Baek casually said, Luckily, I met an acquaintance. As he finished speaking, he suddenly noticed something unusual. He leapt forward in a flash, getting close to him and shouting, "Huh, wait, why aren't you tied up?" Woonhui avoided him. He turned away, not looking him in the eye, and casually replied, "It's a long story." Song Jua Baek didn't understand, but was very curious. "What, tell me?" Unfortunately, Woonhui hadn't even shown any intention of telling when the 5 leaders' loud voice from above interrupted the conversation. "Stop talking and pay attention. Do you see the platform behind me? I'll count to 5, run." Song Jua Baek looked up at the 5 leaders in the distance who were as small as ants and complained, "At least untie us before telling us to run who would." Song Jua Baek saw Woonhui obediently following the announcement and stirring to leave. He asked, "Are you really running?" Woonhui turned his head concisely. "If you don't want to die, follow me." The Song twin brothers looked at him in confusion. Song Jua Baek uttered a puzzled "huh." Who would have thought that this Luoyang city donkey would actually, after speaking, turn on all his firepower and run away, completely escaping the mundane, unburdened by worldly dust, abandoning his 2 compatriots behind? Song Jua Baek gaped and shouted loudly, "Woonhui, what do you mean? Seriously? At least explain among all the young lambs." Only Woonhui was the reincarnated senior from the previous life, aware of the situation and acting accordingly. The 5 leaders now seemed to have counted to 5. He suddenly stopped speaking, suddenly looked into the distance, and then made a gesture of sweeping his hand across his neck. That was a silent signal. Unfortunately, it was a clear signal that no one paid attention to a group of young lambs, including Song Jua Baek and Song Woo. Jun stood there looking around. No one noticed a killer slowly drawing his sword from behind them. Song Jua Baek turned to Song Woo Jun and said, "Damn it. I don't know what's happening, but let's just run." Song Woo Jun nodded. "Yeah, that's right." As soon as he finished speaking, the merciless blades began to slash down, blood splattered. Everyone immediately paid attention to that terrifying movement, especially the fair-skinned, pink-lipped young woman standing next to the victim who was slashed in her eyes. The brutal, deadly image was reflected at close range. She couldn't help but scream. The scene that followed goes without saying was a chaotic panic, even more so than seeing a disturbed beehive. Everyone ran in disarray as if possessed by demons. Anyone unlucky enough not to run in time would be immediately cut down. The 2 twin brothers unexpectedly realized this was why Woonhui ran away so quickly. Both ran like mad. Song Woo Jun ran while observing. He shouted, "Brother behind you." Song Jua Baek cursed angrily. What the hell? Once again, everything happened just as he said. The 2 quickly flew onto the high platform, then simultaneously panted. Song Jua Baek said disbelievingly, "WTF, Song Woo? Jun, we should do what Woonhui did. I don't know what's going on, but if we just imitate him, we'll be fine." Song Woo Jun obeyed. "Okay, I'll imitate him." Gu Sang Woong and his subordinates looked down from above at those who escaped onto the platform. He said, not clearly looking at anyone, "I've never seen this before." "A child who knows what to do without being told," the pink-haired subordinate replied. "I think that's the child Captain Wu mentioned, sir." Gu Sang Woong agreed, "That's right. He claims to be a descendant of the sect." Sodom beside Woonhui couldn't help but exclaim, "You know what to do without waiting for orders. You really are a blood cult member, aren't you?" Woonhui calmly replied, "At least I have to do this to avoid suspicion after claiming to be a descendant. Moreover, if I don't do this, they'll yell and make an example of someone." Sodom stretched bored sounds tiring. After a small massacre, but with everyone in a state of tension and fear, Gu Sang Wong now shouted to the crowd that managed to escape below attention here, "Be happy, for you have been chosen. The will of the great blood demon will lead you to glory with the blood cult." Except for Woonhui and the Song brothers, it seemed all the unfortunate children here didn't know who kidnapped them or why they were kidnapped when they heard the terrifying name in the martial arts world spoken by Gu Sang Woong. Everyone shouted in confusion, "Blood cult. This is the blood cult." A young man angrily cursed, "Don't spout such nonsense. How can killing and kidnapping be about choosing people?" Sodom shaded her eyes with her hand, also wondering. He's right. But is it okay to say that Woonhui, understanding the situation, replied profoundly, Of course he will be made an example of. Sodom asked again. What do you mean by being made an example of? Woonhui just said exactly. Perhaps you didn't see it because we ran towards that young man. He continued to question, unaware that a merciless blade was approaching once the martial arts world discovers you. Before he could finish, the blade cleaved his head, and in just a brief second he was sent to heaven. Woonhui's thoughts continued to answer Sodam, but the weak can die at any time in the blood cult. Sodam! Her eyes widened. Couldn't help but admire the iron-blooded flow within this organization. They did all sorts of troublesome things just to kill them so cruel. Woonhui was too used to this, he said expressionlessly. They force us to be loyal to them through fear. It's quite effective. Woonhui was not wrong. Indeed, the scene just now was very effective soon. There was no more babbling around. It was so quiet that one could almost hear the flapping of flies and mosquitoes. The killer standing among the crowd coldly warned, "Keep babbling, if you want to end up like him." Little Sodom, though, not afraid, couldn't help but be horrified, she said. "It's terrible. How did you survive in your previous life?" Woonhui closed his eyes and frowned. "There's nothing to be proud of, but I managed to survive by being obedient like a dog." Gusong Wung, after letting his subordinates lecture, the kids immediately returned to the matter at hand. He shouted loudly, "Now, we will begin the first challenge." Then he lowered his gaze and the smile on his mouth became strangely sinister. He said, "All right, let's start with you. The person in the first row, do you know what's in this box?" The person he was targeting was none other than Woonhui, targeted so explicitly. Woonhui had no choice but to calmly reply, "Sir, it's bloodworms." Gusong Wung heard that and smiled contentedly. "Oh ho ho, very good. Now explain to these people what bloodworms are." Woonhui opened his eyes and replied, "Bloodworms are a type of poisonous parasite. They are implanted in the chests of disciples or soldiers to make them loyal to their master. Every 24 hours they have to take medicine. If they don't, the bloodworms will wreak havoc in their chests." Song Jua Beck, from beginning to end, watched Woonhui's erudite reply without moving his eyes when he finished answering. He said, with a surprised look, "I can't believe you know all this." Gusong Wung praised him. "You are absolutely right, truly worthy of being a descendant of the blood cult." Song Jua Beck immediately startled. He looked at Woonhui beside him in shock, unable to help. "But curse you, bastard! So you're a spy for the blood cult." Sodom, however, supported his words. "Oh, you're right in the past. He really was a blood cult spy, and he will once again become a blood cult disciple." Woonhui gritted his teeth to avoid striking. He reminded her, "Don't you dare provoke me. It's really troublesome to deal with this mess." Gusong Wung at this moment continued. He still talked to him, putting his hand into the box containing the disgusting insects and saying, "All right, I will give you an opportunity to show your loyalty to the blood sect. I will make you a hero by implanting the bloodworm before the others." Everyone below collectively looked at Woonhui. Some whispered, "If he doesn't do it, he'll be killed." Woonhui's face darkened. He thought, there's no other way. I've become the center of attention. I have no choice. I must live, even if I have to swallow the bloodworm. With that, Woonhui clasped his hands and thanked those in front of him. "Thank you for letting me receive the bloodworm first." Then Woonhui stepped onto the platform. He was not at all afraid and even dared to say, "Sir, may I please have some water to swallow them?" From a distance, the 5 leaders crossed their arms and looked at him. He casually said, "The commander seems to like him, although that doesn't say whether he's a member of the blood sect or not. The truth will soon be revealed. Everything has been carefully calculated." "Woonhui, do you really expect this?" On this side, Woonhui really swallowed that disgusting thing. After he was done, he politely bowed and said, "Long live the blood demon and the blood cult. Thank you for this opportunity." Gusong Wung smiled, truly a descendant of the blood cult. Then he turned down and said to the crowd, "You've all witnessed it, haven't you? Now each of you shall in turn receive the bloodworm." Woonhui turned back to his original position. This thing was truly dangerous. As soon as he swallowed it, he felt discomfort in his chest. Sodom was very worried about him. She fretted. "What are you going to do since you've swallowed the bloodworm? You'll only live for another 10 years. Wunhui gripped his clothes tightly, struggling to say, I have a feeling the poison will spread in half a month. Unexpectedly, as soon as he finished speaking, a pain like roots digging into Wunhui's internal organs pierced him, a searing pain, as if a knife was wriggling wildly in his chest. The young man couldn't help but let out a soft groan, and crumpled Sodom beside him asked in alarm, Are you okay, Wunhui? Wunhui tried to force out words. My chest hurts so much it's hot like fire. I feel like I'm being burned from the inside out. Sodom worriedly said what happened to your chest Wunhui also didn't know. I don't know, the pain changes every moment. The place that hurts must be where the bloodworm is. Bloodworms will never cause trouble without a reason while struggling with the pain. Wunhui inadvertently glimpsed a familiar figure standing in the distance looking at him. As soon as he saw him, his mind was filled with suspicion. The captain, he definitely did something. The pain grew heavier by the moment. In a flash, it had transformed from a pea to a mountain pressing down on Wunhui's body, crushing him, forcing him to his knees. Gusang Wung saw this from afar and couldn't help but be surprised. He said loudly, What's wrong? Wunhui finally fell to the ground in this critical situation. Suddenly, the 5 leaders stepped in front of him. The person said from above, Is it because of the bloodworm in your chest? To live up to the name of a descendant of the blood cult? This is just a small, welcoming ritual for you, LOL. Wunhui's face darkened, almost completely drained of blood. He struggled to look at the man with angry eyes, secretly cursing, You bastard! What did you do to the bloodworm in my body? Wunhui lay slumped on the ground. The 5 leaders looked down at him and humorously said, It seems the bloodworm is having a rough time. He sneered at someone who claimed to be a successor of the blood cult, but was in such agony right at the initiation ceremony, haha. Wunhui shivered from the pain. He frowned and thought, Damn it, what did he do to the bloodworm to make me suffer like this, you scumbag? Gusang Wung asked the 5 leaders, What's wrong? What happened to that new disciple? He replied, Everything's fine, Commander. He calmly explained, It's just that the bloodworm was a bit agitated when he swallowed it. The pain made his whole body tremble. He thought lies as if, This is the first time I've swallowed it. The 5 leaders touched his shoulder and ordered, Turn around. I will use internal energy to suppress the bloodworm. He was surprised. Why would you? He frowned. Do you think I want to? The other new disciples are waiting for you. He shouted. Turn around now. Wunhui was confused. What? So it's not the 5 leaders, He suddenly noticed something unusual. The pain was moving downwards as if he quickly shouted, Wait a minute, I'm fine. No need to do that. He was annoyed. What are you babbling about? Again? Turn around, rookie. If you get hit, you'll suffer internal injuries. He focused his internal energy into his left hand and shouted, Focus. Your energy on your dantian, he thought in panic. No. This feeling. This pain. His face turned pale. It's definitely it. I have to stop him. He stammered. Commander, stop. He unexpectedly released a loud fart. The 5 leaders froze. He was stunned, the air thick with an indescribable smell. He blushed to the tips of his ears and stammered, I told you I'm fine. The next part of the journey was filled with incessant laughter. Sodom, the short sword, laughed hysterically and asked, How did you manage to fart in that situation? He was annoyed. How long are you going to keep teasing me? She flew behind him, holding her stomach, laughing loudly. The more I think about it, the funnier it gets. When I first arrived, I was a bit bored. Luckily, thanks to you, he glared at her. His face red. All right, stop talking. I've suffered enough. She wiped her tears and happily asked suffered what because of that fart. Earlier, LOL. He touched his chest. Task. It's not about the bloodworm. He mused. The pain has completely disappeared, and that strange feeling in my chest too. Now I feel much more comfortable. Song Woo-jun spoke up and asked, Hey, blood cult. Spy, where are we going now? He glanced at him and calmly replied, Spy, you idiot. I don't know everything. Sodom the sword wondered, did he forget that he also swallowed a bloodworm to save his life? He shouted loudly, How could you betray your friends back home? Do you want to show off and gain merit with them, you scumbag? He coldly replied, What nonsense! What would I gain by showing off to the blood cult? The 5 leaders spoke up, everyone attention. Both turned to look at him. He continued to announce, Now, we will proceed with sorting no noise or unauthorized actions. Listen carefully. Sodom rubbed her chin. It's him again. He was surprised. In my previous life, this was done by a different commander. Could this be because of the event earlier? He pointed and said, "The task is very simple. Do you see the passage behind me? Inside, it's dark and the rock walls are jagged." He instructed, in each passage, there is an instructor. Each person will go in and be tested by them. He showed everyone 3 rank tokens. When the test is complete, you will be given a high, mid, or low rank token based on the instructor's assessment. Try your best to achieve the best results. His voice deepened because our sect highly values strength. Look closely. He showed everyone his belt. Do you see my belt? Disciples wearing blue belts are high-level disciples. His voice filled with pride. High-level disciples who have made outstanding contributions and abilities will be granted the grace of having the bloodworms removed from their bodies. Strive to contribute and serve the blood cult. You will be duly rewarded. The crowd stirred. Everyone became excited. Remove bloodworms from the body song. Wu Jun mumbled, "So I just need to become a high-level disciple." He thought to himself, it seems everyone is excited about this tiny glimmer of hope. They don't know that this is the first step towards gradually becoming a true disciple. The 5 leaders pulled out a red flute. He coldly said, "I told you not to make noise." He froze, thinking in alarm, that is. He began to play the flute. He quickly covered his ears. Song Wu Jun asked in confusion. What's wrong with you again? He advised him to follow. He curiously asked, "Why are you suddenly covering your ears? Although the flute sound is a bit loud, it's not that bad." Suddenly his face turned pale. "Oh no." Everyone groaned and screamed in pain. "Sodom." The sword worriedly asked him, "Wunhui, are you okay? Why did everyone suddenly become so strange?" He panted, "That flute sound will stimulate the bloodworms. They will go crazy and start wreaking havoc." He touched his chest and wondered, "It's strange. I also heard that flute sound. But why don't I feel anything?" The other disciples lay trembling on the ground. Oh, the 5 leaders stopped playing the flute. He sneered, "I only told you about becoming a high-level disciple because it's a procedure, but how many of you can truly reach that level? At most, only about 2 or 3. The rest can rest assured and live with the bloodworms for the rest of their lives." Song Wu Jun panted, "Damn it, how can I live my whole life with this thing?" The 5 leaders shouted, "How long are you going to lie there? Everyone stand up." When he saw everyone scrambling up, he was satisfied. "All right, now it seems more orderly," he mused. "Although I'm not entirely sure, it seems the bloodworm is no longer in my chest." Sodom curiously asked, "Was it because you covered your ears earlier?" He refuted. "Even if I covered my ears, it wouldn't completely stop the bloodworm from being agitated." He pursed his lips. "If my dantian were still intact, I could use internal energy to check." But Song Wu Jun growled, "All right, I've decided I've already swallowed the bloodworm anyway. There's no turning back, right?" He gritted his teeth. "Because your dantian is destroyed, no matter how hard you try, my martial arts will surpass yours. I will strive to become a high-level disciple, remove the bloodworm, and avenge myself on you later." He thought, what is this bastard babbling about all of a sudden? The 5 leaders sternly said, "Now I will call names." When he saw someone raise their hand, he asked what's wrong. Song Wu Jun shouted loudly, "Sir, I want to go first." "Sodom," the sword whispered. "Is he angry because you didn't answer him?" He helplessly thought, just because of that. The commander's voice echoed, "Recruit, step forward." He rushed forward. "Yes, sir!" He turned back to challenge him. "Open your eyes and watch Wunhui. I will prove that even without your help, I am still completely superior to you." Suddenly he received a cold punch to the face. He was sent flying and fell heavily to the ground. "Ugh!" The 5 leaders irritably said, "Are you deaf from the beginning? I told you not to act on your own. Don't step out of line without permission. You are just a recruit. Just listen and follow orders." He raised his voice and remembered to respond. When your superior gives you a task, he looked at Wu Jun, lying prostrate on the ground. That idiot. The disciples quickly replied, "Understood." The 5 leaders ordered Yi Yang family Wunhui, "You will be the first to enter the assessment." He hesitated. "You're calling me?" he mused. I have a feeling he's up to something. Surely, nothing will go smoothly. He smirked. Is there a problem, young successor of our sect? Do you have any complaints? He bowed respectfully and replied, No, sir, I wouldn't dare. I just wanted to thank you for your consideration. He secretly thought this life is probably going to be exhausting too. He walked inside. He continued to order the remaining recruits line up. You will enter in turns. He looked around and mused. I can't believe I have to go through the assessment again. It truly brings back memories. His memories flooded back in his previous life. A commander named Hai Qian was the one who tested him. Sodom, the sword flew closer to him. But you don't have a Dantian. What rank token did you receive in your previous life? He leisurely replied, Of course it was the low rank. He slowly recounted low-rank disciples would have to do miscellaneous work and were often sacrificed. She puffed out her cheeks. Your previous life was quite hard too. A voice suddenly rang out, You are Woonhui from Lulang County. He secretly thought this voice is good. I'm prepared for this, although he looks younger. He's definitely someone I knew in my previous life. She curiously asked, Do you know him? He immediately replied, Yes, very well indeed. He smiled. He was my direct superior in my previous life. Sodam was surprised your superior in your previous life. She eagerly asked, And in your previous life, which sect did you belong to? You said you had to move luggage. He threw up his hands. It was the Blood Wolf Corps. The Blood Wolf Corps. She anxiously inquired. Blood Wolf Corps, so he's the commander of the Blood Wolf Corps. He clenched his fist. Yes, that's the name I told Du Jang Ho. He looked at him. Commander of the Blood Wolf Corps, Old Man Tin Cow. He coldly asked, Why aren't you answering me? He glanced at him and asked, Are you Woonhui from Lulang County? He thought the 5 leaders are cunning, but it won't work. I was able to fool the 4th Blood Star, Du Jang Ho, whom I just met for the first time. He confidently mused. So what is this to Commander Old Bastard whom I already knew in my previous life? Watch this, he clasped his hands in greeting. Yes, I am Woonhui from Yi Yang family, commander of the Blood Wolf Corps. I have heard much about you from my maternal grandfather. He drew his sword and coldly said complete lies. Sodom was surprised what? He was also startled by that reaction. He continued. You said your maternal grandfather was once a member of the Blood Wolf Corps. He questioned in the records of the Blood Wolf Corps members. There's no one matching your maternal grandfather's information. Who are you? Woonhui was stunned. He froze, unable to react or dodge. Old Bastard lunged forward, his hand tightly gripping his neck. Woonhui cried out in pain. Ah! His eyes were filled with murderous intent. He coldly warned, You are playing with death. You said your maternal grandfather served under my father. His face turned purple. He tried to pry his hand off his neck and shouted loudly, I, the commander, have been trained in the Blood Wolf team since its inception. I remember the faces of all my father's subordinates. Sodom flustered. He's exposed. You deal with him yourself. Get me out of here quickly. He painfully thought, if I take you out, the situation will only get worse. I need to use reason now. He was about to deliver another uppercut. She cried out, Woonhui, watch out below. Thanks to her reminder, he managed to dodge that treacherous attack in time. He hastily summoned Sodom the sword to block. He exerted himself, thinking my hip feels like it's about to break. Can a person be this fast? He threw a powerful kick to his chest, he mused. If only I could lure him into listening then. He gritted his teeth worriedly, thinking, damn it, I can't hold out much longer. He flew backward, crashing hard against the rock wall. Blood splattered from his mouth. Sodom quickly reminded him, Woonhui, you need to focus. His whole body trembled. He irritably thought, damn, his cruelty is exactly like in his previous life. She asked worriedly, Woonhui, are you all right? He shivered. If I get hit directly, I'll die easily. He reassured her. Sodom, I'm fine. That kick wasn't a real attack. Old Bastard continued to lunge forward. She quickly cried out, If you're fine, then pay attention, he's coming again. His head was spinning. He struggled to balance, thinking, suddenly dizzy. It's hard to focus. She looked at him in surprise. When she saw the bloodstain on the rock wall, she finally understood. She cried out in alarm. Oh no, your back is injured. He stood still, eyes closed. she said urgently, her voice full of worry. Then remember to move. As I say, that's a downward slash towards your neck from your right side. As the attack approached his neck, she cried out, "Block it now." He gripped his sword tightly. Both hands raised high, the tip of his sword managed to block the attack in time. He calmly watched him fall to the ground, his sword was thrown far away. He trembled, struggling to sit up. He was surprised that he could still move. He thought tensely, "Damn it, I almost died, thanks Sodom." He suddenly startled. Oh no. She flew off somewhere. The corner of his eye caught something strange, making him suddenly look in that direction. Old Bastard stepped forward and stomped heavily on his chest, making him cry out in pain. He pressed the sword close to his throat and coldly ordered, "Answer me. Who did you hear about me from?" He smiled secretly, thinking thank goodness he stopped to interrogate me. "I must seize this opportunity," he painstakingly whispered. "Commander, don't you want to find your little sister?" A cold voice rang out. "Little sister. It seems you've gathered quite a bit of information about me." He exerted pressure, stomping harder on him, his voice filled with cruelty. "But you're mistaken because my only little sister is no longer in this world." He hastily shouted, "Lady Sewa is still alive. On the day your father was murdered, she was kidnapped." He froze, then exclaimed what he quickly continued the corpse at the scene. "Why do you think only Lady Sewa's corpse was burned by fire?" His voice was firm. "The corpse is fake. Your little sister is truly still alive. If you want to know more, you'll have to make a deal with me." He stood still, his eyes sharp as if wanting to pierce through him. He suddenly spoke. "You even know her name." The sword was slowly lifted, then suddenly plunged forcefully into the ground. It was only a very small distance from his face. He said in a deep voice, "It seems you're not lying." He struggled to sit up. He slowly said, "All right, let's assume I was tricked. Tell me everything you know." Old Bastard frowned after hearing that I will decide where Sewa is now. He rubbed his chest and said with difficulty at the Flower Moon Merchant Group. His face darkened. He coldly asked again, "Flower Moon Merchant Group." He growled. "The Flower Moon Merchant Group is under the management of the First Blood Star. Could he be the mastermind behind my father's death?" He quickly confirmed his speculation. "That's right. You guessed correctly. It's all to stir up your anger and make you lead the Blood Wolf Corps." His silhouette clearly appeared in his mind. He continued. "First, Blood Star. Jang Ryong. It's all his conspiracy." He frowned, his voice full of doubt. "No way, that's absurd. The wounds on my father's body were clearly reported as—" He cut him off. "Did you see it with your own eyes, Commander?" He looked at him, his tone calm. "The collection and examination of your father's corpse were all handled by the people of the Flower Moon Merchant Group and Clan Head Moon Lake, right? In a desolate remote area, mysterious figures were carefully guarding a hidden location. A whispered thought echoed in someone's mind after a month of hardship in Xinjiang Tianmen. I finally have it in my hands with strange ancient characters. A young man with orange hair sat in a cave, built like a bizarre warehouse filled with hundreds of cluttered items and scrolls. He lowered his eyes to the old darkened paper in his hand, secretly confirming this is definitely the real thing.